Chapter 5, An Invitation into Darkness. After taking down Fort Vox, Regis returned to Fort Cirque, Altina. Eric and Jerome stayed behind, with 4,000 Germania war prisoners. There was a high risk of losing the fort if they slipped up. Jerome could only be left behind in situations where he couldn't exercise his ambition. Regis rode the carriage alone. He did mingle with the soldiers traveling with him, but he wasn't with his usual group now. It was a fresh experience journeying with 1,000 soldiers transporting goods, but he couldn't calm down. After entering the dark forest, the middle-aged knight approached the carriage with an uneasy expression. "Sir Strategist, will it be okay? What's the matter?" "This is the forest belonging to the barbarians who attacked us some time ago. It would be better to hurry them in." "Ah, about that," Regis remembered Dithart. He took on a massive amount of jobs during the preparation phase of this battle. "Don't worry, we need to be alert, but there won't be a large-scale attack by the savages." I knew it." The rumor was true." "Ah, you already knew." Regis thought the news of the secret alliance had leaked. "But that wasn't so," the middle-aged knight said with a serious face. "Because the princess is a goddess, so even savages that were no different than wild beasts yielded to her." Not goddess or something. Foo. I understand. There was no other way for that Jerome to lose his duel. She really is a goddess. Ha. This man was Knight Commander Everard's subordinate. Regis accepted bewilderedly. He continued while puffing out his chest. "We have the blessing of the goddess. Let's return to the fortress the next morning as planned. Please travel on the carriage with ease, Sir Strategist." "All right. Well then, I will be in your care." The group returned without any trouble. The weather was great. If this was the blessing of the goddess, Regis had no qualms expressing his gratitude. Fort Cirque was in a festive mood after receiving the news of victory. When Regis's group arrived in the afternoon, the wide-open gates were filled with cheering soldiers. They even threw flower petals from atop the walls. They entered the parade square. The citizens of Chuanville were present too, serving beer and meat in celebration. Everard came to receive them. "Oh, Sir Regis. Thank you for holding the fort. You really did it, as expected of the strategist. You are a true hero." Please hold on. I didn't do any." "Raise your head." "Those accomplishing what others couldn't do are called heroes on the battlefield." "They will force the title on him even if he resisted." So Regis nodded hesitantly. He wanted to curl his body up. The heroes appearing in the stories Regis read were cool, popular with the ladies and had lofty goals. Altina should be closer to that. She should be the heroine. You understand, Sir Regis? This exhilaration. Everyone was in utter despair, but thanks to you, we can share the joy of living on with each other. Isn't this an achievement worthy of praise? I am really happy. But really, I just happened to know. And I was lucky. The one executing it were the professionals and troops. You are really timid. Smack. Everard patted him on the back. Regis wasn't good with accepting compliments. He saw through me, Regis thought with an awkward smile. Everybody, the main character for the day is Sir Strategist here. Hurry, say something. Because of Everard's roar, the troops celebrating in the vicinity focused their attention on him. Regis was at a loss. Thank you everyone for your support. This victory was thanks to the effort of everyone present. That's right. Now is a good chance, so I will break the news. Belsmith Border Regiment will shift its base to Fort Vox. The troops turned silent instantly. That famous Fort Vox said to be invulnerable will be their new base? Cheers erupted everywhere. Everard laughed heartily. Wahaha, what a joy. Gahaha, cough. He choked. The troops and the citizens attending the festival were celebrating joyously. When he realized it, Regis was surrounded by merchants. Sir Strategist, please award us with the contract to restore Fort Vox. I brought in barrels of beer to celebrate today. By the way, do come to our workshop if you require more weapons. How about using this chance to buy new furniture? That is not something I can decide on my own. Please help to recommend this to the princess in my stead. Well, she did say she would leave this to me. If you have anything you need, please give us the business. I know. I will look into it, so, this way please, Sir Strategist. Forget about business for now. Let's have a drink. By the way, this child is my daughter. She is about marriageable age. Oh, Sir Strategist is still single? Please take a look at my daughter. No. Women have the right to choose too. I am not someone who can marry so easily. They were all using this chance to market their service. The strategist Regis was unexpectedly highly regarded. On top of that, shifting to Fort Vox meant reinforcing troops and maintenance of the new base. If they secured a major contract with the regiment, they could reap a large profit. No wonder the merchants were showing their business smiles. Gilda, I still have preparation work for the relocation to handle. Regis ran from the parade square as if he was fleeing. He returned to his own room. The entrance was guarded by soldiers, so the merchants couldn't follow him into the central tower. A different kind of fatigue that was different from the battlefield compelled him to collapse onto his bed. Shortly after, the door was knocked. Regis was surprised. Who is it, Mr. Regis? It's me, Ellen. He breathed a sigh of relief. Margrave Jerome's maid, Ellen. came over to help from time to time. She was slightly older than Regis. After opening the door, a lively brown-skinned girl entered. She hugged him with a "Wah, Mr. Regis. Woo, congratulations. You were amazing." Moist eyes, blushing cheeks, and a soft sensation. Regis felt he was turning strange in a variety of ways. Amselin, I thought it would be hopeless to attack that notorious fort. Yeah, I thought so too. And all of a sudden, I heard news of Mr. Regis' victory. Ha ha ha. Well, the victor is the princess. I was really worried. I wanted to meet you. Thank you. Regis was hugged and stumbled backwards as he was being pushed. He tripped over a pile of documents and fell. Mr. Regis Tilda. This is bad. If I don't clean that up, now is not the time to think about that. When Regis focused on the present again, Ellen was riding on top of him. Yes. Ellen looked into Regis' eyes passionately. He could feel her warm breathing. Regis' mind was blank and his body stiff. He couldn't comprehend what was going on. Welcome back, Mr. Regis. A voice came from the door, but the tone was ice cold, and sounded familiar. Regis finally regained his senses. Miss Clarice, how unexpected. You actually remembered my name. Why, of course. Remember. Regis looked at her and found her ice-cold smile chilling. It made him shiver. His current position was stuck close to another woman, a bad position to be in, Regis said in a panic. No, this, Amselin came over to congratulate me and, I see. If you plan to continue, I will just leave, alright? Continue what? Regis struggled to get up. Ellen backed away with a regretful face. Tilda. Phew. Clarice entered the room and arranged the scattered documents. This is the regiment's fort, not the Margrave's mansion. If you want to play, can you please do so in the parade square? A needle-like gaze pierced Ellen. Ellen backed away. I am serious about this. I see. And so, you think I am not serious? Foo. There won't be a conclusion to this debate. Mr. Regis doesn't have such thoughts. It's a pity. How could it be? Men only think about that, be it day or night. The two women looked at Regis. Ellen's gaze was full of passion while Clarice's eyes were ice cold. Maybe it's because of how Regis was brought up by his sister, but Regis was like a little brother who couldn't stand up before elderly women. He felt that he couldn't handle either lady. Regis backed away once more. He felt as if he had entered the cage of a grey wolf. What do you mean by those thoughts? The two women sighed in response. Mr. Regis is really, it's Mr. Regis after all. What did I do? It's what you didn't do, Mr. Regis. Amselin, please restrain yourself. If you go overboard, I will call the guards, okay? Tilda. At this moment, Ellen's brother Gusta showed up. He was an apprentice butler in the Margrave's mansion. Found you, sis. I just received Master Jerome's letter. Let's hurry back to the mansion and report to Mr. McLean. The innocent youth turned pale with just a fierce glare from his sister. I will return this time. Farewell, Mr. Regis. Let's continue next time. Yeah, him. Clarice turned her back to the siblings. Mr. Regis, remember to get some holy water to expel evil from the priest later. Why? After the door was closed and the siblings were gone, Clarice's anger finally eased. She approached Regis with a smile and reached both her hands out, and pinched Regis' cheeks. He was too naive to think Clarice's anger had eased. Although Regis didn't understand why she was angry. Welcome back, Mr. Regis. Fumo. I'm fat, because you promised. So I believed you will be back. It's great that you are not wounded. MMH. Regis' response was weird because his face was being pulled. The fingers pinching his cheeks let go, and started to caress his face. Clarice put both her hands on Regis' face, and she drew her lips closer like this. What is happening? Regis was petrified once again. She smelled really good. It numbed the depths of his brain, when she was close enough for Regis to feel her breath. Mr. Regis. Clarice? That's forbidden. Before a woman like me. Being so defenseless. What is happening here? You want me to explain it here? How cruel of you, Mr. Regis. I thought you were more gentle. I am not very gentle. Others might get such an impression because of my lack of courage. Are you changing the topic? Is that so? I didn't mean to do that. Foo. Can I report this to the princess? Regis shrunk with the mention of Altina. Clarice released her hands. Before he realized it, Regis had backed away for unknown reasons. Clarice smiled happily. I was joking, Mr. Regis. Would you like some tea? Thank you. I won't hold back then. I am feeling really thirsty for some reason. All right, immediately. Clarice left the room with a bow. 2 weeks after the Balesmith Border Regiment took down Fort Vaux, Regis' group were inside the conference room used by Juan Gardner and his staff in the past. The Empire's flag and the flag designed by Altina were draped on the wall. Because she lacked artistic talent, the drawing of the shield was redrawn by a professional. A corner of the room was decorated with red flowers, prepared by Clarice, who moved here from Century Fort. I thought it would be needed soon, so I brought it in advance. That's how she was, as usual. The one who had the utmost faith in the princess' victory was definitely her. Apart from Regis, Altina, Everard and Jerome were present too. Only the Minimema forces were left in Cirque Fort, the rest have shifted to Fort Vaux. It would be their base from now on, Regis said with a report in hand. And in conclusion, the relocation has been completed. It will feel uncomfortable before getting used to it. Renovations will be done, so let me know if you have any suggestions. Altina lifted her hand and said. The chefs are sighing, saying they couldn't make anything but sausage. Ha ha, I will get an architect for the kitchen. There will be a new stove by next month. Jerome browsed the document in his hands. What about the mercenaries? You did talk to the guys from Fort Vox, right? About 1,000 will end their contract with Varden Duchy and sign up with Belsmith Border Regiment instead. But they are still prisoners of war right now. That's too little. 3,000 of the 4,000 troops stationed here should be mercenaries. There should be some Varden soldiers who want to defect too. Shouldn't there be 1,500 more? Our budget is tight, so I made the criteria more stringent, such as age and battle experience. HMMP, you are still as usual. It doesn't matter, take in everyone who is willing. But, they would be combat worthy after training under me for 3 months. I get it, you're ignorant of things that have to do with sweating. Even though you are so well versed with bloodshed, please don't make it sound as if I have a weird fetish. Compared to ever-driven stories, tales about intellect are more popular these days. Speaking of genius and bloodshed, I read a book not long ago. It was about an exceptional girl solving mysteries while eating snacks. That was great. Just staying in her tower and... Enough, next report. Yes, when Regis chatted about books, he couldn't stop himself. The return request from Varden Duchy. Do you want to hear the amount they are offering? No need for that. That's true, Altina nodded. Be it the lives that were lost in taking the fort, or the lives that were saved with the conquest of this stronghold, these can't be bought with money. If we need money, just capture the capital of those bastards. I will burn them down when I have the time. Just tell them that. Wait, Sir Jerome? I was just talking about how precious lives are. We would probably make war with them anyway. Tilda, I get it. I will reply to Varden Duchy. It would be fine if there won't be any war immediately. Everard seemed to be in a great mood and said. Speaking of which, the troops seem to be addressing the regiment by another name. HMMP. Jerome shifted his gaze. He seemed to know about it. Altina tilted her head. And what's that? Marie Quadra Army, that's what they call it. Me? This means the soldiers adore the princess. Is that so? That's how it is. A goddess. Altina shrunk with embarrassment. Regis sympathized with her. Although the territory of Belsmith wouldn't disappear, the scale was beyond regiment level. Calling it the Marie Quadra Army was more appropriate. Isn't that great? The door was knocked at this moment. Because these were passages dug through boulders, the sound of knocking was louder than Fort Cirque. Ender? Pardon me, it was Eric. He took out a letter. This just came from the capital. These words made Altina and Jerome tense up. They were ordered to attack Fort Vox because of their alliance with the barbarians. Because the border regiment became strong, the order was passed down to weaken them. But Altina managed to take down the renowned invincible fort and increase her forces by more than 1,000. How would the second princelet react? Regis took the letter. This is addressed to the princess. Is it okay for me to open it? Of course. This concerns all of us. Well then, the letter was laid out on the table. It was another long-winded letter congratulating the victory. At the very end, we will be hosting the Founding Day Festival in April. Marie Quadra Argentina is cordially invited to attend. This is what father wished for as well. I looked forward to the day our family will be gathered once more. Jerome slammed his hand on the table. It's a trap, indeed. But we can't ignore it too. Everard frowned. Eric looked gloomy too. That's right. It said that it was the wishes of the princess father. The emperor, again. Turn it down and be branded as traitors? Regis tilted his head slightly and said. It shouldn't be that extreme, but it can't be helped if they accuse us of being disloyal. Taking Fort Vox and increasing the princess forces is already a widespread topic. With this fort, we can stand up to the guys of the First Army. Jerome stood up. From the current circumstances, there might be problems with supplies, but it was definitely better than before. Altina asked Regis. What do you think? How about meeting them? They are your family after all. They are family. But they might want to kill me though. Just try to ascertain this fact. If you want to move forward with your ambition, you will need to face them one day. Face them. Yes, the main character of stories will always meet a rival. It's so common that they might as well be friends. Books again? Can they be trusted? Probably. Are you afraid? I don't know. It wasn't often that Altina showed her weak side. The name of her brother made her caught her off guard emotionally. This was an unstable factor which Regis wants to get rid of. This is an invitation made in the name of Prince Littrell. Anything that happens in the Empire or on the way there would be his responsibility. But that doesn't guarantee that everything would be safe, right? Running away is not an option. Yes, Altina stood up. I am going to the Imperial capital. Even if darkness awaits me there, Jerome said with his war face. Imperial capital. How about bringing all 5,000 troops along for the victory celebration? Well, that meant an all-out war. Regis frowned. Altina shook her head and said. I just need Regis to come along with me. Just me? Clarice will be coming too. Just 3 people? TCH. Jerome sat down with a bored expression. Everard and Eric pleaded Altina. At least bring along a guard. Regis wanted an escort too, because the enemy wasn't just Prince Literal. Anyway, it had been quite a while since he left the capital. Cannons. In imperial of year 851 of the Bulgaria Empire, firearms such as pistols, muskets and cannons exist. The cannons were the first to be implemented into the army, and was the most influential in changing the face of war. Its design was very simple. One side of the barrel was sealed in a conical shape. The inside was like a narrow cup. First, a pouch of gunpowder were stuffed in from the muzzle. An iron cannonball serving as projectile would be rammed in next. If the pouch of gunpowder was ignited, there would be an explosion, and the pressure would make the cannonball fly out. And so, how could the gunpowder be ignited? After all, it was deep inside the steel cast cannon, and covered by the iron ball and wrapped in a pouch. In the depths of the cannon was a thin narrow hole called a vent, which was about the size of a finger. The vent pick, a ice pick-like dagger, was struck down the vent and into the gunpowder pouch. Next gunpowder was poured into the vent, and it could be ignited from the outside, although some of the pressure from the explosion would escape from this vent. This method of ignition had never changed in almost 400 years. The cannons might be powerful, but if the projectile was just an iron ball, its area of effect would be quite narrow. Therefore, it was more prominent in sieges to destroy castle gates and walls, or in naval battle, and after equipping a large quantity of it, it was very effective in city and fortress defense, which was an exception to its usage. The munition used by the firearms in this era was black powder. By using it could be easily made by mixing charcoal, sulfur and saltpeter. Furthermore, the fineness of the powder, temperature and humidity would all influence its power, and there were times when it would just burn instead. An abnormal explosion might break the body of the cannon, or the projectile might shatter and block the barrel, or it might fail to fire due to a dud, and many of the artillery soldiers weren't familiar with the operation of the cannons, so the rate of cannons breaking down were rather high. By the way, in the Kingdom of High Britannia on the other side of the ocean, the Ellswick cannon that was breech-loaded had been invented. Even though it had a complicated design, it was powerful, long-ranged and very accurate. Books. Appendix. Before the invention of paper, books were written on thin slices of wood and animal skin. Ink was the charred remnants of burned oil, or crushed minerals dissolved in water. When Bulgaria was founded, basic paper-making technology was already widespread. Back then, things like torn rags were used as the ingredient. The torn rags were cut into pieces, submerged into water, then stretched out slightly and dried. Even with the advance in technology, the fundamentals of paper-making remained the same. It might become thinner, wider and easier to mass-produce, but the basic concept was the same. If limited resources like torn rags were used, paper would not be able to be widespread. The first person to invent a machine that uses vegetation as the ingredient to make paper was a scientist from the Germanian Federation. With ingredients that was much easier to obtain, paper of a higher quality was made. This revolutionary invention spread out in the world immediately. In the Bulgaria Empire, producing paper at such a large scale happened in the imperial of year 800. By order of Emperor Vicente, a large paper fabrication plant and print publishing factory was built in the suburbs of the capital. Not only was cheap paper readily available, there was also a publisher right besides it. It was natural for book publishing technology to advance rapidly. It wasn't just rolling paper into scrolls or folding them up, but binded books that used fine strongs and steel staples. Thin books bound together by glue were also made. Books bound by glue was basically the same as the book fabrication process used in modern Japan, but gluing one edge of the papers to create a spine, it could be secured firmly. I think that's how this book should be like, not that wouldn't be so for the digital version. By the way, Regis was an avid reader, but not a book lover or collector. He had a theory that the value of a book isn't decided by its rarity or workmanship, but its content. But at the same time, it was a fact that holding a rare and well-made book in hand would make one feel happy.